Well, hello and welcome to the 50th episode of SportsDay Rangers. I'm John Blake.
And for 50 times, I'm Evan Grant.
And the trade deadline came and went this week. The Rangers made a couple of minor trades, but Jacob deGrom, Corey Seager, and Nathan Eovaldi, among others, are still in Ranger uniforms.
Yeah, it ended up being a very quiet day for the Rangers on Monday. Following the earlier week's deal for Chase Silseth and Logan O'Hoppe, the Rangers' only deal on Monday was to send Josh Smith to Toronto for lefty Adam Macko, in basically a deal that saves the Rangers a little bit of money.
And what a difference a week makes. A week ago, the Rangers, coming off great series with the Mariners. They'd won the first game in St. Petersburg against the red-hot Rays, and now they've lost 6 straight, fallen into a tie for second as we tape this today with the Seattle Mariners, both clubs 2.5 behind the Houston Astros.
Yeah, it just was not a good week, and it continued into the post-deadline. I don't know if you say hangover or malaise, whatever, when the Rangers made five errors, John, in a 5-1 loss to a San Francisco team that I think was very close to asking Ron Washington to get out there and field because they had traded away so many guys at the deadline. But let's get to happier business, shall we? Our guest this week is, for the 50th episode, is Will Clark, the former Rangers first baseman, is going to join us for the second time. He played for the Rangers from 1994 to 1998 and was a key part of the club's first 2 division titles.
And we'll have to give Will hearty congratulations as his daughter Ella will be competing in the Miss USA 2026 competition later this month. And on the archives in Arlington, we're going to talk about one of Will's former teammates, both with the Giants and with the Rangers, John Burkett, as we're coming up on 30 years of the trade for the Rangers got Burkett from the Marlins, and then his first start, which was an epic first start against the Blue Jays.
And hey, just a reminder, you can reach out to each of us on X with any Rangers questions or comments. I'm at Evan_P_Grant. And he is at Ranger Blake. And just the programming note that please don't send me your lineup questions. I don't know why the lineup is made, and I don't have any answers for that. Send me your queso recommendations. Thank you.
Bottom of the 9th, bases loaded. Here comes Jimmy Dale from Baker Brothers Plumbing, AC, and Electrical.
Thanks, Chuck. When your home pitches curveballs, Baker Brothers knocks it out of the park.
Home run, Baker Brothers. Incredible.
As the official home service partner of your Texas Rangers, we're offering $300 off a tank or tankless water heater.
Another winning call. Visit callbakernow.com or dial 214-342-1171 today.
Baker Brothers.
Great service.
And let's get right into it, Evan. I guess we'll start with the trade deadline. Surprising to you, the Rangers really didn't seem to pick a direction. They started last week, got a serviceable reliever in Chase Silseth, and maybe a catching, I wouldn't call him a prospect, but certainly someone that could be in the mix in Logan O'Hoppe. But then as the hours ticked down on Monday, one trade to move Josh Smith to Toronto, and again, as you said, they saved some money. And obviously, there was a lot of talk about Jacob deGrom not be willing to waive his full no trade. What do you make of the Rangers trade deadline moves?
I'm not sure, John. I think the key takeaways for me are Jacob's belief in this team and his desire to try and win here. I think that's significant. I think the other thing that can't be overlooked is the Rangers, we knew this going into the season, that if the Rangers were going to make moves at the deadline, it was probably going to involve adding some money to the payroll. And they appeared to not be willing to do that. You looked at other teams, even the Pittsburgh Pirates were more aggressive in adding to their bullpen than the Rangers were. I think this team had some needs that if they decided that they were going to go forward with this roster, particularly after the Jacob decision. And I want to sidetrack for just a second. I know that a lot of times fans look at a player who says no to, uses his no trade clause, and fans get upset with the player. And I just want to make sure that everybody understands. Look, this is negotiated into a player's contract. All the player is doing is living up to the letter of the contract. He signed to be here. He wants to be here. The Rangers have spent 60 years looking for an ace pitcher. They finally got one, and that he wanted to stay here should not in any way be looked at as a negative on Jacob deGrom. All right, back to all of that. Once they decided that deGrom was going to stay here, I think it was incumbent upon the Rangers to try and add another bullpen arm, maybe a catcher, while they let O'Hoppe continue to work out in the minor leagues. And wouldn't have minded to see them get a right-handed bat. But all of that, given the Rangers' trade capital, all of that would have taken adding some money to the payroll, and I think the Rangers just weren't willing to do that. So those are my takeaways. And, I have some long-term questions about what's going to happen here. But for the time being, I go back to Jacob deGrom's words about believing in this team and thinking that they can win. They're 2.5 games out as we tape this in the American League West. There's certainly the possibility, if they get healthy and get productive, that they can go on a run. I just know that I say those words, and even I sometimes question myself because this team hasn't demonstrated that in the last 2.5 years.
And getting healthy, there's obviously a litany of guys who are, I don't know if you'd call them on the doorstep, but Jordan Montgomery, Cody Bradford, hopefully Josh Young. You heard some encouraging news on Kyle Higashioka. But, in case of Montgomery and Bradford, they haven't, it's not like they haven't pitched in a big league game in 2 years for the most part. It's going to take time to ramp it up. Jack Leiter threw a live BP yesterday, but that's also going to take time to ramp up, right? Once you get back on a big league mound, pitching in a big league game, I think history shows you don't just, fall in it. It takes time. And the other thing is, you bring those guys in, and I don't know what it's going to, you may know more about what the rotation would look like. Maybe Quantrill goes back to the bullpen, but, they're not going to be able to pitch 7 innings right off the bat.
No, for sure. And so you'll probably have to piggyback them with somebody. And look, if you do a Montgomery or a Bradford piggyback with Cal Quantrill, you have a lefty-righty situation that you can employ or deploy however you want to do it. The big return would be Josh Young. He would make a difference potentially in the lineup. And I do think that some guys like Nicky Lopez, Nicky's cooled off just a little bit. I think that, being able to get Zeke Duran a day off every once in a while will help. The right-handed element against the left-handed pitchers lately has been really weak because Justin Foscue has gotten cold since the All-Star break. Cam Cauley is looking like a rookie since the All-Star break. And so if you get Young back, I think you become much more of a legitimate opponent against left-handed pitching. There's hope that even hope the Rangers could get Robert Garcia back before the end of the year to help on the left-hand side. We'll see. And that's basically where this club's hope is: get healthy and get on a run. That's the hope for the rest of 2026.
And the guys like we've talked about, Nicky Lopez, Elias Diaz, and Cam Cauley. These guys have done yeoman work this year to kind of bring it up. But at the end of the day, it does come back to your key star players to be able to carry you in a pennant race. And then, historically, that has always kind of been the case.
You need guys to come in and give you a little bit of a lift, but you need your stars to be stars.
So let's look at the division for just a minute, because I wanted to ask your opinion about this. we've seen Houston, we've seen Seattle lately. Very obviously much different results against both teams. Do one of these three teams, Rangers, Mariners, Astros, have a club, have the ability to put some space between them and the rest of the division, or is this what you're going to kind of see the rest of the year?
Well, listen, all I can tell you is that the Astros, in my mind, have the best player in the American League this year, and that can make a difference, right?
But they didn't do a whole lot yesterday. I mean, they didn't do a whole lot at the deadline. They got Varsho to help their outfield. Their starting pitching is still...
They thinned out their pitching a little bit with trading Spencer Arrighetti. So right. I don't know. I just knew and look, John, I think my observations are skewed because it feels like every time I ever watch Yordan Alvarez play against the Rangers, the guy is unretirable.
Right.
He's we need to do a segment at some point in time on the greatest Ranger killers of all time, but I can't imagine that there's, outside of Miguel Cabrera maybe, and
Vladimir Guerrero in his heyday was pretty
Vladimir
good.
Guerrero. I mean, but Yordan is just he just bludgeons this club. So if I'm leaning on somebody over the last 55 games, I'm leaning on a team that can rely on one player to carry them, and the Astros can rely on Yordan Alvarez. He's proven that. Do the Rangers have a guy that can do that? Yeah, they've got a guy in Corey Seager who can do that, but he hasn't demonstrated that yet this year. The Mariners have a guy in Cal Raleigh who theoretically could do that, but he's a 160 hitter for the season. He's a shell of what he was a year ago. So if you're asking me, does a team have the ability to take control? For me right now, based on the fact that the Astros just swept the Rangers and that they have the best player in the American League, yeah, I think the Astros have the ability to really wrest control of this division. And I want to point out, one thing we've pointed out, John, about what takes place in August is that the Rangers have 19 straight games against losing teams to start this month. The Astros also have 19 straight games against losing teams to start this month. So the Rangers' easy schedule, the loss to the Giants aside, the Astros also have an easy schedule to start this month.
And then you look at September and teams that maybe you didn't figure 2 months ago. The Twins are playing better. The Rangers end the season in Minnesota. They got to play the Red Sox again. And again, the Rays come in. So, I mean, and we've talked about this all season. It seems like a broken record. Okay, the Rangers now have this stretch of teams that have losing records, and it hasn't, at least to this point, really added up to any continued sustained success.
Correct. I mean, there's just no other way to say it. We've said it a million times. Yes. Nope. So, they've not found any way to have any sustainable, continued, consistent success.
Well, what can you tell? Looking at the trade deadline here. Let's talk a little bit about Silseth and Mako. Silseth is in the big leagues. Mako has been sent to Round Rock. Both those guys can help the bullpen here in the next couple months.
I don't know if Mako is going to be a factor before the end of this year. Obviously, he's got 22 games of big league experience as a reliever. The Rangers were a little bit Chris Young and Ross Fenstermaker didn't give a definitive role for Mako for the remainder of this year. He's got the ability to start. So maybe the Rangers look at taking the rest of this year to build him back up as a starter and make him a candidate for the rotation next year. You didn't get a lot yesterday out of the post-trade deadline briefing. For one thing, I think Chris Young was worn out. It had been a really exhausting day, and it always is, and it takes a toll on him. And secondly, you're getting these players in, and now you've got to figure out exactly what your direction is. So I think they could go a number of different ways with Mako, but, if you factor him in for next year and you look at, say, you've got DeGrom, Evaldi, Rocker, Leiter, you hope Bradford is finally healthy again, potentially Mako, and maybe the guys in the minor leagues start to get headed back in the right direction.
And Silseth, they said last week he fits right in as kind of that leverage guy in front of Jacob Latz right now, right? Especially with Junis
Right, and
show.
I left Junis out in the injury report. I think the Rangers are still thinking Junis could be back by the middle of August, and then I think you see the value of Silseth. Right now, I think Silseth is having to step up and pitch, exclusively in the eighth inning leverage kind of role for the right-hander. I think in the perfect world, you'd have him available maybe for the seventh. You'd have Junis available for the eighth, and then Latz for the ninth. But you've got to get everybody healthy again before you can do it that way.
Well, let's fast forward the 30th anniversary celebration of the 1996 Texas Rangers. The first Rangers team ever to advance to postseason is just a couple of weeks away, and we've got over 30, I think, players, coaches, executives, staff. They're going to be here for a luncheon when there's still tickets left for the luncheon on Friday, August 21st. Just go to Rangers.com for that. And then before the Saturday game.
Can we just give them your phone number and have people call you?
No, not at this point. No,
okay.
That's okay. And then before Saturday's game against the Angels, 6:05 start that night, we will have an on-field ceremony to honor this group. And like I've said, I think on past podcasts, it's amazing the turnout we've had. This was a team that was really close under Johnny Oates, and Johnny's wife, Gloria Oates, will be in attendance for the weekend. And we've had a great response of people coming back. But our guest today cannot come back, and he's got a very good excuse for that. Former Rangers player Will Clark, who was there were a lot of leaders on that team, but Will's, I guess, demeanor had a lot to do with keeping those guys together in '96, helping lead the team to its first playoff appearance. Long-time first baseman primarily with the Giants and the Rangers, and a proud father right now. And we'll talk to Will next. Well, our guest on this week's Sports Day Rangers, and Will, this is our 50th podcast, by the way. Evan and I have managed to get through 50 of these, and we wanted to have a really special guest on the 50th edition. So Will Clark is our guest, 15 seasons as a first baseman, mostly with the Giants, and then obviously 5 seasons here in Texas, 6-time All-Star, 2-time Silver Slugger, 300 hitter 10 times. You don't see that anymore, that's for sure. And the MVP of the 1989 LCS, and I love to bring up this stat. He had 6 homers off Nolan Ryan, the most ever of any player off Nolan, and a 308 career average here in Texas. That's second all-time behind Al Oliver. And Will, now a special assistant for the Giants. Thanks for joining us here on our podcast this week.
John, I'm glad to be on the podcast. Happy 50th to you and Evan. And I know this is the anniversary of the 96 first ever Ranger Championship. And so, it's pretty special being on. So thanks for having me.
Well, thank you. And we've got about 30 guys coming back. It just kind of shows how close that team was. And that will happen in a couple of weeks. But you're going to be doing, and we wish, boy, do I wish you were here, but you'll be doing something even more special as your daughter, Ella, will be competing for the Miss USA, in the Miss USA competition in Miami over that time. She was named recently, won the Miss Louisiana USA 2026 pageant. And how proud, you've done a lot of things, but when your daughter does something like that, accomplishes something like that, that's got to be unbelievable.
It's definitely my best, proud daddy moment, except for when they were born. And, she's been doing this pageant stuff for 9 or 10 years now. And it was really one of her goals to win Miss Louisiana. She won it about 2 weeks ago. And because of that reason, I'm going to be in Miami with her, supporting her as she tries to be Miss USA. And that's why I'm not going to be able to make the reunion with all the guys. But, I tried to send a little video. I'm going to miss seeing all of those guys. Y'all got a
I got the
great turnout.
video. Yep.
Yeah, y'all got a great turnout coming, and I wish I could be there, but man, I gotta be proud daddy, so I'm gonna go do that.
And Evan, on the video, Will wore, he had a 1996 Rangers AL West Division Champions hat. I guess laying around, I'm glad you still have one, but he wore that on the video.
He had to have a new one because I know every video that I've seen and every photo I've seen, he's drenched in the AL 96 champions hat from the clubhouse, because I don't think I wasn't in there, but the one thing I do remember from every video that I saw is that the most enthusiastic champagne and beer sprayer was Will. And I do remember that also from the 98 team for personally experiencing that.
Well, Evan, the big thing about that is, you really come into spring training every year, trying to get to the postseason and going through the trials and tribulations of a full major league season. When you do get there, you want to celebrate. And a lot of those guys were real kind of reserved. And I'm like, no, boys, you guys don't understand how hard this is to get here. So we're going to celebrate. And, I did it when I was in San Francisco. We enjoyed it. We had a lot of fun and brought it over to Texas. So 96 was awesome. 98 was just as good. Both years we ran into a juggernaut called the Yankees and just couldn't get by them. But, bringing those first two titles to Texas was very, very special to me.
But Will, when you signed here, and I know what an old school guy you are, and I know that winning here was going to mean a lot to you, and you made that very clear. And so I wish I'd experienced that moment with you, but for you to actually realize that you had helped take this team to its first playoff spot, what ran through your head, and what kind of enduring memory does that leave you with?
It all started, believe it or not, in 94 with the strike year. I came over from San Fran. I was having a wonderful year. I was an all-star that year. I was hitting 360 something at the all-star break. And then, the strike came about. And believe it or not, during the strike, Tom Schieffer, who was our president at the time, reached out to me and he goes, "What do we need to make this team better?" And I flat out told him, I said, "Tom," I said, "we got so much offense." I said, "We need pitching and defense." I said, "We need to get strong up the middle." I said, "And we need some pitching." And I'll be damned if during the off season, or leading into the 95 season, he went out there and, we got strong up the middle. We got Darrell Hamilton to play center field. We got Kevin Elster to play shortstop.
Macklemore,
and Billy Ripken, playing second. As far as pitching goes, we had Kenny Hill and Bobby Witt and Roger Pavlik, and so they brought Mike Henneman over, to close games out. So, you turn around and you look and you're like, man, Tom went out there and did exactly what we need to do. Now it's time to go in the clubhouse and say, "Hey, boys, let's go. Now we got all the pieces. Let's go." And sure enough, we did.
I think Ken Hill, and if you look at this, and I know you're an old school guy, but the highest WAR on that team in 96 was Ken Hill. And getting Ken Hill, he pitched over 250 innings, and you can't even fathom that today.
No.
And just what he did,
Yeah, and he did things that were unbelievable. I mean, you could walk out there on the mound, you could tell he was gassed, and Johnny Oates would be out there and he's like, "No, I'm going to finish this." And he'd just reach in, find another gear, and he'd do it. And I think everybody fed off of him. Bobby Witt, like I said, Roger Pavlik, who was a younger player at the time, they all fed off of that, and he was definitely the staff leader.
Well, let's just talk a little bit about when did you think that 96 team had a chance? I guess that, was it spring training? Was it early in that season when we swept the Red Sox and had that great start? When did you think, hey, this club could really be special?
Yeah, no, I think I started seeing it coming together in spring training. It was like, oh man, we got pieces to the puzzle here. And then as you said early in the season, I forget when it was, but sure enough, we swept the Red Sox. And at the time, they were kind of one of the machines in the East. So it's like, well, if we can play with those guys, we can play with anybody. And then, we had some streaks during that season where we got hot and we played extremely good baseball and kind of distanced ourselves.
So for Johnny Oates, talk about him all day, and Gloria is coming back for the reunion, which I'm.
Oh, that's awesome.
She's bringing like all her family and everything, so it means a lot to her. But Johnny's whole, if he could put his same 9 guys on the field, as long as they were healthy every single day, that was what he did. You look at the number of games that Kurt Stillwell and Dave Valley and Rene Gonzalez and guys like Lou Frazier and guys like that played in 96. He believed in keeping the same lineup together every day.
When you have the DH, and this was my argument against having the DH for both leagues, but that's another story. When you get the DH and you get especially 3 or 4 guys hot in the lineup, well, those guys aren't coming out. They're going to play. And that's what happened in 96 and leading into 98 too as well, was we always had 3 or 4 guys that were on fire. And so, well, nobody on the bench is going to be moving, so Johnny ran those same 9 guys out there. And we started racking up the wins, and it was like, well, we're not gonna change a good thing. And so, like you said, Stillwell and Valley and Gonzalez. I mean, I hate to say it, they're awesome dudes. I love them to death, but they weren't going to break into the lineup because you're going to give the guys who are hot the majority of the at bats.
Yeah, and 6 guys on that team played in 143 games or more. I mean, 6 guys. I don't know if the Rangers will have anybody play in 145 games or more this year, but
no, it's amazing. I mean, we had guys, and that was the thing about, especially like a Pudge Rodriguez. I would literally walk up to Pudge and say, I put my arm around him and say, "Hey, partner, I need you to take a day off because it's the heat in the summertime. We need you for next week. We got a big series coming in, whatever it might be. I need you to take one day off." And that's how Dave Valley got his at bats. It was amazing, like you said, watching all of those guys strap it on every day, being professionals, and going out there and getting the job done.
And we did have the one big horse, and good ball clubs. You experienced it with the Giants, with the guys you had there. But Juan Gonzalez that year, it just seemed every time we needed a big hit, he would come up and get it done. And he kind of emerged and matured there in 96.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was his breakout year, MVP year. He had one again in 98. It was fun to watch him because not only did I hit in front of him, but then I also hit behind him. And to be able to go out there and do whatever you can do to get on base because the big man's coming up, and he's fixing to do some damage, or vice versa, is like when you followed the big dude, it was like, well, he cleaned up the bases. Now I got to get the rally started again. And, watching Juan Gonzalez on an everyday basis, it was great. I mean, he did a fabulous job. Seeing him become the MVP that he was and playing as much as he did was awesome. I mean, I had a chance to be around Kevin Mitchell when he was the 89 NL MVP, and then Barry Bonds when he was the 93 MVP, and seeing Juan in 96 and 98 was awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, the 98 season when he had 100 RBIs at the All-Star break was ridiculous, and I think that's the first time I've used the RBI stat in about 20 years too, because nobody seems to care about counting stats anymore. But counting stats to me do suggest posting up, and I really do feel like posting up and playing is as valuable as anything that there is in the game anymore.
My big thing, Evan, there are guys nowadays that post up, but they post up and don't put up the numbers that we put up. It was like, hey, look, if you're going to play every day, figure out a way to get it done, figure out a way to make adjustments on the fly, that kind of thing. Don't keep doing the same old stuff over and over and hitting 220, 230.
Yeah. It is amazing to watch the swings that just don't change, and results don't seem to get better.
And that's, I tell everybody that's the definition of stupidity, is doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting different results. That was one of the things that I, as a hitter, and all of my teammates, we even talked about it on an everyday basis, is like, if something's not working for you, let's tweak something here. Not make a major swing overhaul or anything, but let's tweak a little something to maybe get better contact, better ball flight, whatever it might be. And none of that goes on in today's game.
Let me talk a little bit about and again, and I've talked to you about this a little bit. The reaction we've gotten to this reunion has been unbelievable. I never thought we'd get all these guys to come back who were excited about seeing these guys. But that 96 club was a special group, and you had a lot to do with that clubhouse camaraderie, because we didn't have a lot of players that had significant postseason experience. We had a lot of young guys. We had Rusty Greer, we had Dean Palmer, guys like that. And some of the veterans, unlike yourself, hadn't really experienced much postseason. And I know this is but how did that all kind of come together in the clubhouse, and it became kind of that tight-knit group?
When I came over from San Francisco, we had a little deal where after the games, a lot of the guys would sit around, have a beer, and we'd just talk shop and say, hey, look, you didn't get in the right cutoff position. What were you thinking when you threw this pitch and this count to that guy? And we kind of almost, I hate to say it because we were big leaguers, but we all almost relearned the game. And, when I was in Texas, I brought that over there, and the guys like Rusty Greer, as you mentioned, Dean Palmer, guys like that, man, they just fell into the program, and they were like, man, we've never been around something like this before. And that's what I would say is, like, that's how you gel as a team. That's how you come together as a unit, and you play, for each other out there instead of playing for individuals. And the guys bought into it in the clubhouse. We had some great leaders in our own right. Like I said before, Hanneman took care of, all the bullpen dudes. Myself, Mickey Tettleton, we were kind of the more veterans, in the middle of the lineup. And, you look up and we're doing a great job in winning the division.
And there were some great stories about off-day events. Kevin Elster having a birthday party for his dog, and, Kevin Gross it was George Strait, I think, right?
It was Toby Keith.
Toby Keith, right? That he got together, and that made a difference too, right?
It brought everybody. It brought everybody together. Kevin Gross wanted to. He was real good friends with Toby Keith, and he had like just a private little concert for the dudes and their families. And it was just a great event. It was real low key. Toby got up there sang, 6, 7 songs, nothing major, but just had a great time with it. And then, as you said, Kevin Elster had a birthday for his dog, and we just turned it into a team party. It was like, all right, here we go. And man, those are the kind of little things that away from the field even more bring you together.
But one thing I remember about 97 and 98 was, after games at your locker, there was always that cooler with, packed with a handful of beers. So I don't know how many of them were for you, but guys would sit down and talk, right? And you would just talk. And I do think that's something that I noticed on the great Ranger teams that I've covered in the past, where there were guys that wanted to sit around in the clubhouse proper and just talk about the game, and kind of relive it. And like you said, I don't even think relearn it, but I think everybody just wanted to share their experiences and see if there was something somebody else could get out of it, or something that somebody could interpret.
Well, and then not only that too is, first off, it brought you together as a team. That's first off. Second off, when something goes wrong on the field, a lot of people won't say anything about it. And I learned as a rookie in San Francisco, if you don't say something about it, it's going to happen again. And we're just going to have this downward spiral. So, my personality is really outgoing anyway, as you guys well know. And so I'm going to say something. And guess what? If I screw up, I need you to tell me too, because I can look myself in the mirror and say, yeah, I screwed that up. And so when you had those guys afterwards, we're having beers, we're sitting around talking, and everybody is being held accountable, I think that everybody's performance went up. And, as you and John said, that's why you had, 6, 8 guys, whatever it was, playing 140 something games, is because they wanted to clean up their act. They wanted to go out there and they wanted to better themselves.
Well, and I think that, that closer interpersonal contact made everybody want to not let the other guy down. And listen, I'm just going to share my one Will experience that I've got to share. I don't think I've ever told you this story, Will. But this is 97, and this, I think, just speaks to your personality, and I still laugh about it today. You obviously won't remember any of this, but I was on my first West Coast road trip with this club. It was to Seattle early in the year, and my aunt in Atlanta had passed away, and I wasn't able to get back to the funeral in Atlanta. And so I went down to the dugout. I'm sitting in the dugout, and you came out, and you're like, the media's down here awfully early today. And I snapped something back at you because I was really in a pissed off mood. And you just grabbed your stuff and walked out of the dugout and said, that's the problem with this place. It's always raining up here, puts everybody in a bad mood. I couldn't help but laugh. And it's still a bright memory because it was just such a great line from you. And I know you did that with your teammates, and I know you were sharp with your teammates when needed to be, but you also made them laugh. And that's the thing that I think really brings clubs together, is when everybody can laugh at themselves and one another.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know about your, family stuff going on, but, it was just the fact that, hey, look, you guys are part of the team. I mean, in this regard, because you have to cover the team. You have to either make the team look good or look bad, one or the other. And so it's like, let's make the team look good. And so, that was the one thing. And I found this out in San Francisco, and I brought it with me, was no matter if you had a great game or if you had a crappy game, you always turned around, stood up in your locker, sat in your locker, whatever it was, and you faced the media every day, whether you had a good game, whether a bad game. And so, a lot of people nowadays, as you guys well know, because you guys see it, that game's over and 10 minutes later, the locker room's empty. Empty. And you guys got nobody to talk to. And it's like, no, that's not the way it should be. You guys need to take account for whether you had a good game, whether you had a bad game, whatever.
And I think, you know this as well as I do, better than I do, right? So much of the glimpse that we get of team chemistry is just what we see in the clubhouse, in the little bit that we're in the clubhouse. And when you see an empty clubhouse, you wonder how well connected this team is. When you see a team that is interacting and that is present, you tend to think, they've got pretty good chemistry. And so it does form narratives one way or another. It's that's impossible to escape.
You're exactly correct. You're exactly correct. And team chemistry goes so far. And I've been told by a few different executives, I don't believe in team chemistry. I said, that might be number one on my list. Yeah. Here's one for you. I've never really told anybody about this one, but Kenny Rogers' perfect game. All right. I look down the bench and, I'm like, all right, we're getting ready to go out here and do this thing. And so it's the ninth inning, top of the ninth. And I look at Benji Gill, who's our shortstop at the time, and he is sweating bullets. Bullets. So I put my arm around him. I said, hey, partner. I said, do me a favor. He goes, what? I go, and he had not gotten a ground ball the whole game. I said, if you get a ground ball, I said, I am not Michael Jordan. I said, do not air that thing up high. I said, if you make a mistake down low, and I'll be able to pick it. And I'll be damn if the first ground ball at the ninth inning goes to Benji Gill, and he looks up, and he's got eyeballs about this big around. I go, oh. And he throws one about 100 miles an hour over there, and thank God he went low, and he missed away from me a little bit, so it became a nice, easy pick on a long hop. And I was like, oh, thank God. But at the same time, I went like this. I went, that's what I'm talking about, and I threw the ball around the infield. So that's the kind of being a veteran, helping out your younger players, and giving them positive feedback.
Last thing for me on that is the manager gave the clubhouse. The clubhouse was the players. Johnny was he would come to you guys. He would come to you and some of the other veterans and send little messages that you were asked to pass along. That's the way Johnny believed in running a clubhouse.
Yeah, for sure. And all of the managers that I played for that had a lot of success, Roger Craig, like you said, Johnny Oates, and also, Tony La Russa, they wanted the veterans to run that clubhouse. And like you said, John, Johnny would call me in the office and he'd say, hey, I need you to go talk to Bob. Bob's having this problem. He's having a little issue away from the field, whatever it might be. And I'd literally go sit down with the guy and talk just bullshit. And it worked. I mean, it worked because it became, like we said, a clubhouse where the guys kind of ran the clubhouse. Coaching staff kind of stayed out of the way, and we did our thing.
Yeah, well, that empowers the leadership. I mean, to take control, but it also keeps the lines of communication open because you need to know what the manager is thinking. So
you're exactly correct, and it worked well for our coaching staff, Bucky Dent and Dick Bozeman and all of those guys. I mean, it worked all the way down the line. So like we talked about, if they needed something to be passed on to the guys in the bullpen, Henneman was the guy to do the job. So it was kind of that situation throughout the whole team. And for me personally, 96 was a blur. I mean, it was a blur. I was having so much fun playing, watching, my teammates do such a great job. And all of a sudden I look up and the whole season's gone. We're in the playoffs. I'm like, geez, where'd the time go?
Do you ever think about what if for that playoff series we had the lead in all 4 games, and the Yankees obviously were a juggernaut as they proved in the postseason and against the Braves and everybody. But do you ever think about that a little bit?
Yeah, I do think about it. There was one at bat where, and I think we were winning 1-0 in New York. We had already won game 1, and we threw Cecil Fielder a pitch, and it was a strike, and the umpire didn't call it. And the next pitch, he hit a homer. I was like, if that homer didn't happen, I think we'd have won game 2 as well. So, one of them things.
See, and that made you a fan of ABS right there.
No, not really. Not really. I just had this conversation. I'm glad you brought that up. I just had this conversation. One of our younger players was telling me, hey, they're pitching me away. And, and I go, have you moved around in the batter's box? And he goes, no. And I go, well, they used to call, that or that, depending on who you were out on the mound. They used to call that a strike. So, you couldn't hit it standing in the same spot. So we used to move around the batter's box a lot. And I told him, move up on the plate and look for that ball away. So, that's an example of what ABS has done, is just now these guys get in there and they stand in the same spot with freaking cement shoes on, and they try to do the same thing over and over, and then just beating your head against the wall.
The good thing is that, Will, I really hope you come out of your shell one day and don't
Yeah. I tell everybody the same thing. I'm like, look, all right. And I do this on my podcast. When I do the podcast, I said, I tell the truth. First off, I said, second off, I say everything that everybody's thinking and nobody wants to say. So there you go.
Well, Will, it's great to have you on this podcast again. And I'm really excited for you and Ella and your whole family this weekend in Miami. Good luck to her. I think that's just incredibly cool that now you get to support your daughter.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate it, John and Evan. You guys, 50 shows. This is unbelievable. You know, I did the show earlier, and 50 shows y'all made it through. This is awesome. I'm gonna really miss the guys. I really am gonna miss the guys. But the proud daddy in me's coming out, and I'm going to watch my daughter.
Well, I'm sure you'll be mentioned a number of times. Your ears will probably be burning in Miami with the stories that are being told here at Arlington that weekend.
Well, you make sure, John, you make sure all the guys know that I'm thinking of them, and I'm going to raise my glass to them.
Well, always a pleasure talking to Will Clark. I wish he could come to the reunion, but he's got a really good excuse. And I wish his daughter well in that competition, but always has good opinions and was a major force on that team. So the archives in Arlington today, we're going to talk about what else? 1996, and it was in August 8th, just a couple of days from now, when the Rangers acquired John Burkett from the Florida Marlins for a couple of, at that point, promising right-handers, Ryan Dempster and Rick Helling, both of which ended up with the Rangers eventually. But it was Berkey's debut 3 days later in Toronto, August 11th, 1996. The Rangers had been kind of struggling at this point. 2 nights earlier, Dave Valley had given his, I guess you'd call it, famous clubhouse speech to the team. The Rangers had won the first 2 games of the series, but they really did need another starting pitcher. Kevin Gross had injuries. He'd been ineffective, and they were struggling with that fifth starting position. Their top 4 that year of Ken Hill, Roger Pavlik, Bobby Witt, and Darren Oliver had pitched really well all season. But in that game, 3 days after being traded to the Rangers, Burkett joined the team in Toronto, and he threw a complete game shutout against the Blue Jays. 6 hits, a walk, 8 strikeouts to complete the 3-game sweep. And he became just the second Ranger pitcher to ever throw a complete game shutout in his debut for Texas. And the other one was Hall of Famer Ferguson Jenkins in his first start of the 1974 season. Burkett was 5-2 in 10 starts down the stretch, won game 1 of the ALDS, and also had another big game, Evan, for the Rangers on September 21st when they were reeling 5 straight losses. Their lead had gone down to 1 game, losing a tough game on a Friday night in Anaheim. He came back on Saturday, allowed a run in 8 innings, snapped that 5-game losing streak. The Rangers went on to win the division. So you were pretty familiar with John Burkett in Florida, and then got a chance to deal with him the last 3 years he was in Texas when he wasn't. He had an ERA of around 5 in those 3 years, but 1996 was a different story.
Yeah, I mean, all I remember, obviously, because I was in the Marlins clubhouse at that point in time, was being very disappointed that Berkey had been traded, because he was hilarious to talk to, very accountable, and enjoyed very much, dealing with him. Didn't know that 3 months after that season, I'd get to be reunited with him here in Texas. But the Marlins were very excited about getting the young Ryan Dempster, and thought that there were real possibilities for Rick Helling, who then a year later was traded back to the Rangers. Look, Berkey had been through some pennant races in San Francisco before the strike. And I think he really relished the opportunity to come here and pitch for something that mattered. And I think that really, I really think that powered him a little bit. And clearly he was a great addition, all the way into the playoffs, winning game 1. But I remember that day just being sad that I was going to have to look to somebody else for great quotes on the pitching staff, because I wasn't getting them from Kevin Brown at that point in time.
Oh, we could spend a segment on Kevin Brown sometime. We both probably have stories about him. And again, that one playoff win, game 1 of 1996, the Rangers didn't win another playoff game until 2010. So that was a trivia question for a long time. So But Berkey will be here for that 30th anniversary, and I hope everybody listening out here that's a Rangers fan will join us for that 30th anniversary weekend coming up now in just a couple of weeks. So with that, the 50th podcast for SportsDay Rangers is history. Evan, we've made it through 50. Do you think we can make it through another 50?
I don't know. The over-under was, I think, 22, Will Clark's number. But we have made it through 50, and I am still surviving, and so are you. So I hope people are enjoy listening to this, and my goal is to get through, another 50 if you, Grandpa, will stick around long enough to do this.
Well, I enjoy doing it. It's fun talking to the former players, and we've had some current guys on, and it's fun to also be somewhat topical, and we'll see what happens over the last 2 months. But for right now, we'll see you all next week.